A basic reason why countries trade with each other is that they have comparative advantages in producing different goods or services. To see this, let's look at a simple Ricardian model. It is called a Ricardian model because the economist David Ricardo developed this idea in the early 19th century. Suppose there are two countries, the North and the South. There are two goods, robots and clothes. Each country has 600 units of labor. The production of any goods only requires labor. The labor inputs required for each unit of product in each country are listed in this table. In the North, it takes 10 units of labor to produce one robot, and it takes 15 units of labor to produce 1 unit of clothing. Let's say 1 unit of clothing is 1 container of clothes. In the South, it takes 40 units of labor to produce 1 robot, and it takes 20 units of labor to produce 1 unit of clothing. To make things a bit concrete, perhaps imagine that the North is Japan, and the South is Bangladesh. Here, Japan has a comparative advantage in producing robots, while Bangladesh has a comparative advantage in producing clothes. Notice that the North has an absolute advantage in producing both robots and clothing. But North and South have their own comparative advantages because of differential opportunity costs. Recall that the labor inputs required for each unit of product in each country are listed in this table. To produce 1 more container of clothes, the North needs to give up producing 1.5 robots. The South needs to give up only 0.5 robots. Another way to put it. The opportunity cost for the North to produce 1 unit of clothing is 1.5 robots. This is because the labor inputs that are required to produce 1 unit of clothing in the North is 15. Those units of labor could have been used to produce 1.5 robots in the North, given that producing 1 robot in the North requires only 10 units of labor. The North needs to give up 1.5 units of robots to produce 1 unit of clothing. That's why the opportunity cost of 1 unit of clothing in the North is 1.5 robots. Similarly, the opportunity cost of 1 unit of clothing in the South is 0.5 robots. Because the South needs 40 units of labor for each robot but 20 units of labor for each container of clothes, the South gives up half a robot to produce 1 container of clothes. Because the opportunity cost to produce clothes is lower in the South than in the North, we say that the South has a comparative advantage in producing clothes. The flip side of the South having a comparative advantage in producing clothes is that they have a comparative disadvantage in producing robots. In other words, in this two-country, two-good model, the North has a comparative advantage in producing robots. Why? Again, we could calculate the opportunity costs of producing robots in the North and in the South. In the North, the opportunity cost of 1 robot is 2/3. How to get that number? It takes 10 units of labor to get 1 robot and 15 units of labor to get 1 container of clothes. 10 divided by 15 is 2/3. To produce 1 unit of robots, the North only gives up producing 2/3 units of clothes. In this example, the North has an absolute advantage in both robots and clothing. Would the North still benefit from trade with the South? The answer is yes, because the South has its own comparative advantage in producing clothes, and the North has a comparative advantage in producing robots. To see that, imagine that there is no trade because they are not allowed or feasible. This environment is called autarky. Suppose under autarky, each country produces and consumes the following by using up all the labor in producing both robots and clothes. Recall that each country has 600 units of labor, which are allocated in the production of the 2 goods as indicated in the parentheses. In this example, a total of 30 containers of clothes and a total of 40 robots are produced and consumed in the world, which consists of the North and the South. Now, Suppose that they specialize in producing the goods in which the country has a comparative advantage. That means the North only produces robots with all of their labor, while the South produces only clothes with all of their labor. The first thing to notice is that now the world still has 30 containers of clothes. But the total world output of robots is 20 more than the total output of robots under autarky. Now suppose that the North trades 20 robots for 20 containers of clothes. That is, the robot's price is 1 relative to a container of clothes. With this international trade, even if each country only produces one good, both consume both goods. Moreover, if we look at how many clothes and robots they consume, each country consumes more than under autarky. The North has a lower opportunity cost to produce robots than the South does. Since the opportunity cost of a robot for the North is 2/3 containers of clothing, the North is willing to sell or export a robot for P containers of clothes as long as P is greater than 2/3. Since the opportunity cost of a robot for the South is 2, the South is willing to import, a robot for P containers of clothes as long as P is less than 2. Therefore, for some P between 2/3 and 2, there is a mutually beneficial trade, where P is the relative price of a robot, i.e., the price of a robot in terms of the number of containers of clothes.